Good afternoon and welcome back. I'm going to say welcome back at every luncheon this year because I am so happy to see everyone and that we're back in person. We do have some folks joining us virtually too, so hello to all of you, but I'm just delighted to see these tables filled today, so thank you. You are at the Economic Club Luncheon. This is the place to be challenged by leading speakers that advance great ideas collectively. My name is Kathy Langham, and I am President and CEO of Langham Logistics. I'm also honored to serve as President of the Economic Club this year, and we'll be kicking off today's luncheon discussion. If you haven't already, please check in by scanning the QR code at your table. This check-in gives us the opportunity to make sure we have good information on you and that you're on our mailing list and that we're measuring the right metrics for these luncheons. So thank you for doing that. Before I introduce the President's Table, I want to take a moment to thank this season's presenting sponsor, One America. Please join me in a big round of applause for One America. Let's also take a moment to thank all of our platinum sponsors for the season. Some of you will notice the banners behind me outlined in gold. These are the organizations that have been sponsors for over 10 years. So thank you so much for your long-term commitment to this organization. Last season, many of our luncheons were the top trending events on Twitter. So let's keep it going by expanding today's conversations through social media. So if you haven't already, get out your phones now and post, tweet, or like us to all your friends so they know you're hanging out here at the Economic Club Luncheon. The Economic Club Twitter handle is on your desk, and it is at Economic Club IN. Allow me to introduce the President's Table. Kerry Prather, President of Franklin College. Please stand when I introduce you, please. Kerry Prather, President of Franklin College, one of our platinum sponsors and one of today's panelists. Dr. Lori White, President of DePauw University, and one of today's panelists. DePauw is also one of our platinum sponsors. Thank you. Dr. Scott Feller, President of Wabash College. And then we have Commissioner Teresa Lubbers, Commissioner for the Indiana Commission on Higher Education. So more information on Teresa, who will be our moderator, and the panelists after our meal. Thank you to all our guests for joining us today at the President's Table. Please join me in a round of applause for them. As usual at these meetings, you have some white note cards on your table. If you have questions for one of our speakers, you can fill out one of these cards and staff will collect them during the Q&A session. But warning, please note, the Q&A from the audience may be a bit limited today because we have a tight agenda and we have some really good questions for the panelists already. But hey, if you've got a burning question, we want to see it. For those in the room and also those joining us virtually, you can also tweet your questions to @EconomicClubIN. Please enjoy your lunch and conversation, and we'll be back shortly to begin our program. Thank you. Indiana is fortunate to be home to some of the nation's leading higher education institutions, both public and private. At past education discussions, we heard from the leaders at Butler University, Marian University, and the University of Indianapolis back in 2017. Ivy Tech Community College, Franklin College and Wabash College in 2018, and also Purdue, Harvard, and IU in 2020. Most of these were facilitated by Teresa Lubbers. Today, we welcome back Teresa and the Indiana Commissioner for Higher Education, once again as moderator of a roundtable discussion around higher education. Teresa was appointed in 2009 to serve as Commissioner for Indiana's Commission for Higher Education. That's a mouthful. The coordinating agency charged with ensuring the state's post-secondary education system is aligned to meet the needs of students around the state. Prior to joining the commission, Lubbers served as the Indiana State Senate for 17 years in the Indiana State Senate, leading education and economic development issues as chair of the Senate Education and Career Development Committee. In 2020, Indiana welcomed new leadership to 3 of its higher educational institutions, including DePauw University, Franklin College, and Wabash College. And we're pleased to have these leaders joining Commissioner Lubbers today. First, the president of DePauw University, a private liberal arts college, Dr. Lori White. Dr. White is the 21st president of DePauw University and the first woman and the first person of color to serve in the role. Dr. White has spent 30 years working in higher education and is still active nationally in several higher education organizations. Next, the president of Franklin College, a private liberal arts college, Kerry Prather. Prather serves as the 17th president of Franklin College and was appointed as president in February of 2020 and will continue to lead that institution at least until July 1 of 2024. Over the duration of his 39-year Franklin College career, Prather has served as Assistant Dean of Students, Associate Director of Admissions, Acting Vice President for Enrollment Management, and Acting Vice President for Administration. And Wabash College, a private liberal arts men's college, we have Dr. Scott Feller. The Wabash College Board of Trustees elected Scott Feller, PhD, to serve as the 17th president of Wabash College. He previously served as Dean of College at Wabash from 2014 to 2020, and as professor of chemistry since 1998. Dr. Feller has spearheaded the college's ongoing efforts to expand its academic footprint, focus on student success, and improve operational effectiveness. Please join me in welcoming this esteemed group of education leaders to our stage. Hi, Teresa.
Hi, Kathy.
I have the honor of asking Teresa a few questions to get us started. You've been in the press a little bit lately, and I know several people came up to me in advance and said, are you going to ask why she has announced she is retiring? So you're stepping down from your role as the commissioner in March after 12 years. So thank you so much for your service. The state of Indiana thanks you. You are a true rock star. Why are you leaving us? You're way too young.
Well, thank you. And thank you for acknowledging that I am leaving in March. It was a tough decision. I've said to several people, how many people can say that they've had the privilege of having a career where they never dreaded a Monday? And that, so making a decision to leave something that you love and you're passionate about, I think you'll be able to tell the passion of all of us here today as we share some thoughts with you. It was a tough decision, but I think it's the right decision. It'll give me a chance to do my final State of Higher Education address in February and get through the legislative session and prepare someone for the next chapter at the commission. So it's the right time for me. It's the right time for the commission. I'm not using the word "are." I'm not, retirement is not exactly my way of thinking. So it's really about how do I make a contribution in the next chapter? And I will continue to do everything I can to build this education pipeline for Hoosiers.
Well, fantastic. Thank you. We have heard you talk about education in an environment of changing demographics. And of course, COVID. Can't have a meeting without talking about that. But can you share some of the changes, challenges, and opportunities you see for higher education?
Well, we were having a very interesting spirited discussion at lunch today and talking about the irony of the fact that it's clear that education beyond high school is more important than ever, and that more of our jobs will require higher level skills in a knowledge-based economy. But the flip side of that is there is a growing skepticism about its value. And collectively, we need to do a better job making the case to Hoosiers in a compelling, relevant way about why education beyond high school is important. If you ask people, especially those who say they're not going to go on into higher education, why, the number one thing that they will talk about is affordability. And I don't think Hoosiers necessarily realize that Indiana actually ranks first in the Midwest and fourth in the nation in need-based financial aid. We can tell Hoosiers that between the 21st Century Scholars Program, our Frank O'Bannon Scholarship, and our Workforce Ready grants, there is a way for you to come back and afford higher education. And you walk away from the promise of higher education at great risk to you personally in terms of economic mobility, to prepare the workforce that we need for our employers, and to really strengthen and diversify our state's economy as well. I'll just mention one sobering data point, and that is that we've seen a 6% decline in college going rate in the last 5 years in Indiana, from 65% to 59%. And when you hear me say college, know that I am not talking about a four-year pathway for everyone, although you'll never hear me walk away from the promise of a four-year pathway because it is clearly an important one. But we're talking about associate degrees, industry certifications, and certificates as well. And we're still seeing that decrease. And if people ask me, you know, what's happening, I answer with one word: men. And the problem is that we have seen, while the college going rate for young women leaving high school is still 65%, the college going rate for men is 51%. And if you go ahead and you disaggregate that even more by race and ethnicity, you see even higher decreases. So we have work to do, and I hope we'll have a chance to talk about that today.
Yes, those are sobering, staggering statistics. And shocking to me, who's not involved in education on a daily basis like you all are. I had no idea. How should the Commission for Higher Education continue to engage with colleges and universities to build this value proposition for education and training beyond high school?
We need to make a clear, compelling case about why higher education is important. We operate with a strategic plan at the Commission, which is called Reaching Higher in a State of Change. And it really is focused on the big goal. I hope some of you are familiar with the big goal. It is that 60% of Hoosiers would have a quality credential beyond high school by 2025. We've made progress. When we started measuring this, we were at 33.4%. We're at 48.3% now, but we still have a long way to go to close that gap. We cannot close that gap without doing a better job with first generation, low income, minority students and returning adults as well. So I think what we have to work collectively on, and partnering with our colleges and universities throughout Indiana, is to make sure that people understand it's affordable, to make sure that it is relevant to them. One of the things that we can do a much better job is aligning what people are learning with what they will be doing. So one of our metrics in our strategic plan is that all degrees and programs would have embedded career relevance. About 80% of the degrees and programs now require some sort of work-based learning, aligning what you're learning with what you will be doing. We need to make sure that all of those do that. And I think we can talk about that today as well, because that will build the value proposition. If people see the value of what they're learning with what they'll be doing. We can talk about the affordability, and we need to make sure that people understand that while we may have a low unemployment rate now at 3.3%, the reality is that economic mobility will be linked to your education, and it won't be just your first job. It will be your opportunity throughout your life and your career.
Well, and hopefully the person that takes your place can continue to build on those strategies. I know there are a lot of different strategies in the plan, and hopefully we can all look forward to building on that. Oh, thank you for sharing. Now I'm pleased to turn this conversation over to the commissioner and our panelists. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Well, clearly we have work to do, and we're going to chat about this a little bit today. So thanks to each of you for your service. You are extraordinary leaders for Indiana and the students that you serve. Kathy addressed some of the question to me about the challenges and the opportunities that we have in higher education. And I'd like each of you to sort of pick up on that question as well and talk about it through the lens of your institution, what you see as the changes, the opportunities, and the challenges that you see as well. And I think, Lori, we'll start with you, and then I'll go to Kerry and then to Scott.
So I'd like to start with who, what, and where in terms of our challenges. So the who, we are all liberal arts colleges. And when you would ask the average person on the street, what is a liberal arts college? They would think, well, liberal, does that mean you only teach Democrats? And arts, does that mean you're preparing folks to work at Michael's as a career? Now, I love me some Michael's, but we do a lot more than that. We obviously teach more than Democrats, and we prepare students for more than careers at working at Michael's. But we certainly have to do a better job of articulating what a liberal arts college is, and I'll come back to that in a second. And then the what is, there's a perceived not value in the courses that we offer at our institutions. And so, Teresa, you made the really important point that what people are looking for now is a relationship between what it is that they study and what it is they're going to do with the particular degree that they earn from our institutions. And then the where is, I grew up in cities my entire life. I'm from San Francisco, California. I lived in Los Angeles and Dallas. And before I moved here, I lived in St. Louis. And it took me 3 times to get out of my car in Greencastle because I wasn't exactly sure that I wanted to live in a small town. And all of us are located in small towns. So real quickly, how are we going to address those, who, what, and where? So with respect to the who, I think we need to do a much better job of articulating the real value of a liberal arts education. And I brought along a little prop, and this is a great book written by somebody by the name of Richard Detweiler, and he used to be the former president of the Great Lakes Colleges Association. And he's written a data-driven book about the evidence the liberal arts needs. And just a real quick quote, he found through his data that a liberal arts education has a lasting impact on success, leadership, altruism, learning, and fulfillment over a lifetime. And so in addition to doing a good job of preparing people for careers that they might imagine, there are all of these other things that liberal arts colleges are all about. In terms of location, many of us are working together on a READY grant, which I hope that we get, that will reinvest in our cities, in our towns, so that we will be more attractive places for young people to think about living and working, and for folks like me who come from cities to think about spending time as a faculty member or a staff member at our institutions. And all of us are doing a lot more to be much more specific about what you study at our institutions and how that will link to a particular job or career.
Thank you. Kerry, what about Franklin? What are you doing there, and what are your challenges and opportunities?
Well, Franklin has historically been probably a little more on the pragmatic side of the liberal arts to begin with, but I think there's an irony embedded in your question, because the graduates of today won't have a career. They will have multiple careers, probably in multiple different areas. So I think the economy itself, as it's changing and the pace at which it's changing, is a day-to-day argument for the liberal arts, because the skills learned at institutions like ours supersede a narrow career path. And I don't think today's graduates have an opportunity to start with one job and have that same job 20 years from now. The jobs of today, many of them won't exist 20 years from now. The jobs that exist 20 years from now haven't even been defined yet. So I really think the compelling argument we need to make is how that liberal arts foundation prepares them for the versatility that they're going to find once they get into the marketplace. And, for decades, we have had a robust internship program trying to make the connection that you suggested between what you're studying and what you might be able to do upon graduation. We've just expanded that. And I think more and more schools have headed in the direction of that experiential part of the education to tie together what you're learning in the classroom with what you're going to find in the marketplace. And then we've tried to stay in touch with our alumni. They're really helpful in telling us what the curriculum should look like, what we should be offering. So on an annual basis, we touch base with our alumni at Lilly, our alumni at Salesforce, our alumni at Cummins, and they help keep the curriculum relevant. They help with all of the kind of stepstones that students need to follow for careers in those different fields. And I think being sensitive to the market is going to be really, really important. The curriculum changes, even at liberal arts schools. It's not set in stone. So we've added data science because that's what the market has told us we need. We've added neuroscience and psychology. We've added biomedical physics because that's what the market demands. So I think we've got to, while we stay true to that foundation, we've really got to be listening to what the students want and what the market demands.
And I think we need to get that message out, because I think a lot of people are still operating with a lagging narrative, thinking that higher education institutions are not making changes with those changes in the economy. So Scott, first of all, let me say that you're continuing to serve men. So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And we need you to keep doing that. For someone like me who spent most of my life, working for opportunities for women, we never thought we'd be leaving all these men behind. So just an aside, but now you can go ahead and tell us about what you're doing at Wabash.
Not surprisingly, the enrollment of young men is at the top of what we're thinking about. We're going to celebrate our 200th anniversary in 2032. And as we think about our third century, our focus is on demographics, the demographic issues that you've spoken about. We know that nationwide, going into in the middle of this next decade, we are going to see a decline in the number of 18-year-old graduates from high school. We know that layered on top of that, Wabash College is about 70% of our student body are from Indiana. So when you talk about the demographics of Indiana, you're talking about Wabash College. And on top of that, we have the issue of declining participation in higher education by young men. I'm so glad this is the second meeting I've been in the last month where Teresa has raised this. And of course, if you can read the New York Times, you can read the Wall Street Journal. This is an issue that everyone is grappling with, and we're especially thinking about demographics. So I would say we're embracing it as a challenge, but also as an opportunity. We've got basically two pieces of that opportunity that we think make sense for Wabash College. One, we're thankful to have reputational strength and reputation that also allow us to draw students more broadly. So we've got a remote recruiter in Chicago. We have had for a while. It's working very well. We now have full-time remote recruiter in Dallas, Texas. And this year we stationed someone in Phoenix, Arizona. These are areas where the demographics are a little more favorable, and there are not the large number of liberal arts college or even small colleges available through much of the South and especially the Southwest that we have here in Indiana. So expanding that geographic footprint is one of our pieces. The second one is to double down in the state of Indiana and to grow the proportion of young people going to college. Even if we know that the total number of high school graduates may be static or declining, we know that there are low-income students, first-generation college students, and students of color who aren't participating in higher education at the rate that we need them to. So we're very thankful to have support from the Lilly Endowment, who are helping us with a project we call Restoring Hope, Restoring Trust. And this is an Indiana-focused initiative, especially in Indianapolis and Fort Wayne, to get the message of the opportunity that higher education provides to young people, but specifically the opportunities that Wabash College provides to young men in the state of Indiana.
Well, those are all really very thoughtful answers. Let's drill down a little bit more about the model for a private liberal arts education in college and the challenges, whether, and we've sort of alluded to this already, whether it's enrollments or financial sustainability or serving a broader population. Each of you have been working to distinguish your institution as a place of first choice, as the right fit for institutions. Tell us a little bit how you're differentiating your offer from, and not in a competitive way. I'm not pitting you against each other here now, but we all know, obviously we've talked about the enrollment challenges, whether it's people going on to college or demographics or whatever, but how are you going about, whether it's with how you're looking at your curriculum, whether you're eliminating programs, whether you're adding programs, whether you're going after different population? Why don't we just start with you, Kerry, if you want to speak a little bit about that.
Sure. So I mentioned some of the program development, but I think a couple of things we're very excited about. We're in about the 4th year of a curricular revision, kind of top to bottom, in which the faculty dove in and really studied the nature of how we do what we do. And they came away with the need to just have a much higher level of engaged learning across the curriculum. We've got some historical models of really experiential learning, journalism with our State House file located here in downtown Indianapolis that provides the primary coverage for the state legislature. Our elementary education program has for decades been known for the frequency and the fact that the students are early in the classroom getting those experiences. And then we went through the renovation of the Science Center. We have a brand new Science Center about 5 or 6 years old, but in the process of developing that out, the science faculty concluded that you learn science by doing science, that it needs to be an engaged experience. So the faculty took that and ran with it across the curriculum and really embedded some consistent experiential components to that education. There's the days of lecturing from the front of the room and students absorbing that education are behind us. There's so much hands-on that needs to be done. We built in an expanded internship program, which we've always had, but we've expanded across the curriculum and gone deeper in each of the academic areas. Undergraduate research, which is a hallmark component of that. And then Scott made reference to Lilly Endowment. The Charting the Future grant opportunity provided us the opportunity to leverage that grant into a digital fluency initiative. And we felt like one of the missing pieces from the curriculum was the whole tech explosion and the impact of software applications and the whole tech influence on what you're studying and what career paths you're going to pursue. So if you think about the Liberal Arts Foundation, the content-specific education, we think the next layer that is going to distinguish a Franklin College education is digital fluency, not digital literacy that you know what's out there, but digital fluency that you're actually proficient in the applications that apply to your major and to your career. We're building out now Center for Tech Innovation that will house all of the digital fluency initiatives. And it's really an exciting direction to make sure that we link with, especially, I mean, the tech economy here in Indianapolis is just exploding. So we've made lots of friends in that community. They've reached out to us and vice versa. So we just had a couple of weeks ago, the director of our digital fluency program took a group of humanities majors up to High Alpha, Tech Point, and had a conversations about the place of the humanities in the tech sector. It isn't just a bunch of programmers, a bunch of software writers. There's such an opportunity there. So I'm really excited about that. I think that's going to be a true distinguisher for us.
That is so important, that alignment between the technical skills that you learn with technology and your ability to communicate. That is a powerful combination when people are going to get a job. And we need to understand that technology is actually embedded in so many of the places of work now in ways that they wouldn't have been before.
We think the liberal arts graduates are going to be the leaders in the tech sector, I think, because of what they bring to that effort and the holistic approach that they can take to it.
So Scott, obviously, one of your offers is to just, have a distinguished kind of way that you go after students, you recruit men, but what else are you doing differently at Wabash to actually acknowledge the differences in higher ed right now and what you need to provide?
So we're distinguishing ourselves based on outcomes. We talk a lot about outcomes when we're talking with families. We talk a lot about outcomes when we're talking with our alumni. Certainly people want to know if their son enrolls at Wabash College, are they going to graduate? So we lead with retention rates. We lead with graduation rates. While we know that young men are struggling to enroll, in fact, they're even struggling more to find success on college campuses. So we distinguish ourselves in the success of young men on our campus. And it's important because the one place that college education doesn't pay off is if you don't get a degree. And so we lead with that. We also know that students and their families are concerned about return on investment. All right. They want to make sure that their investment of their financial resources and their time pays off. And quite frankly, their parents want to make sure that their son, in our case, doesn't wind up back in their basement after 4 or 5 or 6 years. And so we have invested significantly in professional development. We work very hard to make sure everyone who graduates from Wabash College has a first destination, a job, placement in medical school or law school, military service. This year, our 2021 graduates, 100% of them are placed. And that's with a 100% knowledge rate. And over the last 4 or 5 years, we have been in the range of 98 to 100% first destinations within 6 months of graduation. National average is around 60 or 70%. So we work to distinguish ourselves in those outcomes because we think that's what is keeping people up at night. We also try to distinguish ourselves quite frankly, on our financial model. We are an unusual college. About 2/3 of our operating budget is met by philanthropy. And so when we're having conversations with families, I say, well, on average, for each $1 your family invests in Wabash College, a friend of Wabash College has brought $2 to the table. That's a value proposition that we can offer and that we're very proud of. It also helps us on that access questions that you and I are so concerned about. So for Wabash College, any student who has a Frank O'Bannon grant or a 21st Century Scholar grant, we're gonna provide institutional funds for the remainder of the tuition free at Wabash College. For middle income families in the state of Indiana, our promise is that the Wabash tuition will not exceed the value at our state's public flagships. So we're thinking a lot about that value proposition, both in terms of graduate, get a job, and the salaries that those young men will earn, both starting and importantly, through the middle and end of their careers. And we're also addressing very clearly, very transparently, what we cost, which is surprisingly less than most people assume. I suppose one other thing that we try to get rid of an implied differentiation, we have to tell people you won't leave Wabash College with a big student loan debt. In fact, and this is true of Franklin, this is true of DePauw, this is true of Wabash, students who leave our campuses leave with no more student loans than they do at IU or Purdue. And so we're constantly out there trying to educate that while we provide an elite education, it is an affordable education. And I would say it comes without any elitism. Those are the things that we're really making sure families understand.
Thank you. That was very helpful. So Lori, is there anything different about the way DePauw is distinguishing itself?
Well, I'd say very similarly to my colleagues, and 98.5% of the students at DePauw receive institutional financial aid or scholarship. So the question about affordability, we certainly want all Hoosiers to know that all of our institutions are accessible to them. Certainly, like my colleagues, really focused on outcomes. And 98% of our most recent graduating class has been placed successfully in a job or in graduate school. And I think the other 2% are traveling somewhere. So it isn't that we haven't worked effectively with them. And we are also talking about curricular renewal. We are in the midst of a really bold strategic plan at DePauw. And number one of our 4 goals is looking at our curriculum and making sure that our curriculum can really reflect the 21st century liberal arts college. And so we are discussing ideas like majors in business and leadership to be able to build upon our historic strengths at DePauw, graduating leaders that the world needs. We're also talking about majors in ethics, taking advantage of our Institute for Ethics on the DePauw campus. We also want to be a campus that is known as a place that's affirming for all of our students, regardless of their background, their identity, their political ideology. And so that is a core part of our strategic plan. And then also really wanting to make sure that our graduates are prepared, as you said, Kerry and Scott, not only for the jobs of today, the jobs of tomorrow, and the jobs that haven't even yet been imagined. And so focusing on creativity and the fact that young people want to do, develop, design, create, tell stories. And so thinking about the ways in which our curriculum can reflect that. And then lastly, one of the things that DePauw has long been known for is the practical application of our educational experience. So the Management Fellows Program is a program that was started many, many years ago to interest and attract students who might be interested in the world of business, leadership in nonprofit and profit organizations, and giving them a practical experience while they are at DePauw, taking courses in a variety of majors, making sure that they have internship experiences, making sure that they are connected with our alumni. We also have a Media Fellows program, a Technology Fellows program, and a Research Fellows program, also designed again to give students some practical experience as we prepare them for the world that they're going to inherit. And then lastly, I think what many folks know about all of our institutions is the huge strength of our alumni, and being able to talk to prospective students about the fact that we have alumni who are astronauts. We have an alumni who's a Nobel Prize winner. We have alumni who are leaders in the world of business, who have written books, who have founded companies, and that the fact that our students will be able to connect with those alumni who are still living, to be able to have conversations with them about their own pathways to success.
We're running a little short on time, but I have a couple more questions and anyone can choose to answer these. I made reference to our 60% goal earlier, and that we wouldn't be able to get to that without first generation, low income, minority students and returning adults. How can you help us get to that 60% goal?
Well, I think we can help in the ways that we have just described, which is doing a better job of articulating that our institutions don't actually cost as much as our sticker price. The fact that all of us are committed to offering a diverse educational experience to the most talented students in the state of Indiana. We appreciate the grants that the state provides that allow students to choose what is the best fit of an institution for them, whether they want to go to a public institution, to a private institution. And as Scott said, we then stack our institutional financial aid on top of those grants. And one of the places that I think we all have to do a better job of is thinking about ways in which we can attract students who don't fit the traditional 18 to 22-year-old. Historically, those are the student populations on our campus. And what can we do? And Kerry will probably talk about some of the exciting things that you're doing at Franklin to partner with our community colleges and ways in which we might think about offering credentials to returning adults. So those are some of the things that I think we can do to assist the state.
Yeah, and I think a greater outreach in underserved communities, certainly, but within the stats you gave, there's still an awful lot of first generation students in Indiana. We have a long legacy at Franklin, and I think have a culture and an approach to this that has been extremely successful in helping first generation students succeed. To Lori's point, I think as Ivy Tech has been more intentional about the community college aspect of it, and as that has started to gain traction, there's a whole market of students who access higher ed just at a different entry point that are going to need to finish that effort with a bachelor's degree. So we signed our first articulation agreement with Ivy Tech to partner with their liberal arts honors program. It's a fascinating program, a very successful program, highly intense, very supportive, subsidized in terms of that support. And we were pleased to have President Ellspermann on campus this summer to provide a place where those students on the end of that experience could then transition and commence to finishing their bachelor's degree. So I think we're all gonna have to look at some different opportunities like that to address the needs that you alliterated statistically to help those numbers grow. And I'm kind of like Scott, I look at those numbers as an untapped opportunity when we're talking about demographics. From a volume standpoint, there's still an awful lot of underserved prospective students that we just need to do a better job of attracting their attention. The other thing is, I think retention rates on campuses like ours tend to be significantly higher than the larger research institutions, kind of by the nature of what we do, the support we provide. So, you know, enrollment growth for us is not just student recruitment, but it's improved retention. But I think there's an argument to the prospective student market too, that there's a much better chance of you staying 4 years and graduating from a school like ours than there is some of the larger research institutions.
Yeah, and I would piggyback on what Kerry said. In addition to inviting these students to our campus, we have to make sure that we're ready for them and that we can provide them the same level of educational experience that we have provided students in the past. So we've been working on towards this for 6 or 8 years, towards improving retention rates and 4-year graduation rates. Last year, our low-income students, our Pell Grant recipients, graduated at the same rate as the rest of our college. This is a lot of hard work, but the fact is these students are not just underrepresented on our campus, but they've historically been underserved. So we as institutions are working really hard to make sure that we are places where everyone feels a sense of belonging, where everybody gets all the tools that they need to be successful, and that they graduate and leave and have the same great outcomes that we've been proud of our alumni for generations.
Well, thank you for what each of you are doing at your institutions. It's going to make a difference, I'm sure, in terms of getting to that 60% goal. The goal is important, not because it's 60%, but because that's what the workforce needs to have those kinds of credentials. For a final question, we've talked a lot about the changes that are taking place in what's increasingly a consumer-driven system of higher education. But what must endure? What must continue to be a part of the ecosystem of higher education? I mean, Indiana is an importer of students. People come to Indiana to go to our colleges and universities. What do we have to preserve even as we adapt?
I would say that we need to hold on to a kind of a great culture of cooperation we have in our state. At Wabash, we have joint programs with both Purdue and IU. The private colleges work together extremely well through the independent colleges of Indiana. I think the second thing we need to do is we need to continue to invest through the Higher Education Commission in those Frank O'Bannon grants and those and those 21st Century Scholar grants. Those are hugely important. The last thing I'd mention is we're very lucky to have a great set of nonprofits in this state that support education. So organizations such as the Lilly Endowment, the Lumina Foundation, that's a great asset for this higher education ecosystem in Indiana. So continuing to invest in all of those things, I think, is what we need to do to stay at the strong spot we're at.
I want to hold on to, as we talk about the purpose of education, and we spent a lot of time talking about making sure that we prepare students for jobs. The purpose of education also is to prepare citizens to participate in this great democracy of ours. And college campuses nowadays are one of the few places where diverse groups of individuals have to figure out how to learn, work, and study together, because most of our neighborhoods, sadly, are segregated either by the way that we look or by the way that we think. And so I don't want us to lose sight of the role that higher education plays in helping young people figure out how to graduate and be full and effective participants in our really important democracy.
I would agree with that. And I also think there's a certain amount of skepticism about preserving higher education as that marketplace of open ideas, open dialogue, open debate. And we need not to lose that credibility. There's something that's always been historically distinct about college and university campuses. And quite frankly, some of the criticism being levied our direction has been warranted in some places. So my hope is that we continue to create an environment where we teach students how to think, not what to think, and that they come to our campuses prepared to be exposed to a lot of different ideas, defend theirs, be challenged by some. That's what this experience should be. And then finally, I would say we need to hang on to the quality aspect because we're all committed to the liberal arts. We're all committed to high standards, a rigorous delivery of the curriculum. And I think students need that. They need the challenge on our campus. We say challenge and support comes in equal doses. And I think that's an important part of what that college experience must be to prepare those students for the world that they're going to find.
Those were excellent answers. So thank you.
Fantastic. So I was going to throw in one last question. It's a bonus question. Just quick response. If there was one thing that you hope the people in this audience heard and will take back to their companies and their associates today, what would that be, that message?
I'll start that in Indiana, we have access to the highest quality college education and it's accessible. We will work with students to find a way. Young people of promise can find hope and set themselves and their generations of people to follow them on a path towards success at our colleges.
And I think we're all committed to seeing those students from entry point to the graduation stage. The days of look to your left, look to your right, someone's not going, well, today it's look to your left, look to your right. You better all be back here next semester and again next year. So that's on us to support those students to make sure that they succeed once they get started.
And that higher education is so important to the future of our state, and that we have wonderfully diverse institutions of higher education. We just represent 3 of them, but I hope that you will leave here equally excited to talk about all 3 of our institutions, your own institution, and all of the other wonderful institutions in the state of Indiana.
Thank you. Commissioner?
I would just say the message needs to be that higher education should be an opportunity for all and not for some. And that whatever we can do to make sure that people early in life see themselves as having the potential to succeed in higher education, we need to make sure they see that option and we need to make sure we provide it. And these 3 institutions are doing a great job.
Wonderful, wonderful. Commissioner and presidents and audience, you know, this is finals week. There's a lot going on in these schools today, and there's a lot going on in higher education this week in particular. And for you all to take the time to let us listen in on your panel discussion was just outstanding, fabulous job. Thank you so much. And Commissioner, best of luck. We'll stay tuned and watch you and see what's next. Thank you all for being here today. Today's presentation will be available online at economicclubofindiana.com. And please join us next month January 31st, 2022, to hear from Esther George, President and CEO of the Federal Reserve Bank of Kansas City. Information and tickets for each of these season's presenters will be found at economicclubofindiana.com. Thank you all and have a great holiday.